Tina, the Tina Turner musical.
You know what would make all this even more awesome?
And Beetlejuice, the musical. These great shows, plus many more, are available now. Visit BroadwaySD.com.
Oliver Twist says.
The stories of Charles Dickens are captivating and timeless. Now the beloved classics come to KPBS.
It's a miracle, that's what it is.
The Charles Dickens Collection, streaming now with Passport in the PBS video app.
Cosa succede? Il peggio è che ci stiamo abituando a questo.
Our idea is to invite a few representatives to the Vatican.
We could still make a change. There is hope.
Watch live or stream Wednesday at 8 on KPBS. You're watching KPBS. Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Monday, December 19th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma, in for Maya Trabulsi. Voting is underway tonight on a tentative contract between the University of California and 36,000 striking academic workers. But KPBS education reporter MG Perez tells us not all of the rank-and-file union members support the new deal.
Almost after 6 weeks of shouting their demands, members of the local UAW 2865 and Student Researchers United have been heard. They have a tentative contract agreement with the University of California, negotiated by this man, Sacramento Mayor Darrell Steinberg.
He did a really good job of communicating our priorities to the president of the University of California, Michael Drake, and was able to get them to budge on things that they had previously been totally opposed to.
The UAW 2865 is made up mostly of teaching assistants with lower pay opportunities and shorter work assignments than the graduate student researchers, who often have grant money supplementing their salaries. Under the tentative agreement, both unions received a 55 to 80% pay raise over the next 2.5 years that varies by job and UC campus. They also won the demand to create protocols for pursuing harassment and bullying allegations made against tenured professors and administrators, along with protections for international students who have had no security against unjustified threats of having their visas revoked without cause. But some of the strikers are opposed to the tentative agreement.
Once this contract is signed, I'm only going to see an increase of a few $1,000s on top of my $23,000 salary that I currently have.
Mohammed Yusuf has already voted no, and he's joined other teaching assistants in a campaign to make sure the tentative agreement is rejected.
The strike isn't over, the strike is ongoing, and that there is mass opposition throughout the state, primarily coming from those workers that are the most vulnerable and that need the contract protections the most.
Yusuf says the agreement does not provide pay raises equivalent to the student researchers. He claims there are no significant subsidies for workers who need child care, and the agreement makes no consideration for affordable housing.
This is a historic opportunity for us to really secure a contract that works for everyone, as well as set a precedent for other academic workers across the country and, for labor unions as a whole.
Both unions have their members voting online through Friday at 5 p.m. A split vote would send them back to mediation. A simple majority in favor of the agreement would send them all back to work by early January. MG Perez, KPBS News.
More uncertainty at the border tonight. The Supreme Court is temporarily blocking an order that would lift Title 42, the pandemic-era restrictions on asylum seekers. But that doesn't mean the restrictions won't still be lifted by Wednesday. Ivan Rodriguez has the latest.
More confusion and uncertainty along the U.S. border as the Supreme Court on Monday issues a temporary hold on the termination of Title 42. The order by Chief Justice John Roberts calls on the Biden administration to respond quickly by 5 p.m. Tuesday, signaling that a final resolution could come soon. An emergency appeal was filed by a group of Republican-led states. Prior to the Supreme Court order, local officials sounding the alarm.
Talking to some of our federal partners, they really believe that on Wednesday our numbers will go from 2,500 to 4, 5, or maybe 6,000. And when I asked them, I said, do you believe that you guys can handle it today? The answer was no.
Hundreds of migrants are already in El Paso streets, living in unsafe conditions.
There's not enough funding to buy our way out of this. There's not enough shelter space here in El Paso. There's not enough transportation out of El Paso.
Denver, Colorado has now declared a state of emergency as hundreds of migrants arrive in the city. And New York City estimates it will need at least $3 billion in federal support through 2026 to help with its migrant crisis.
42 needs to be extended until we can get really, truly immigration reform. Immigration reform will not happen in our country until we all come, both sides of the aisle, Democrats, Republicans, and the administration, that you have to have total border security.
Ivan Rodriguez, KPBS News.
Former movie mogul Harvey Weinstein has been found guilty of raping a woman in his second trial in Los Angeles. He was found guilty of 3 counts involving a woman known as Jane Doe 1. The jury hung on 4 other counts, including those involving Jennifer Siebel Newsom, whose husband is Governor Gavin Newsom, and a 3rd woman. Weinstein is already serving a 23-year sentence for a rape and sexual assault conviction in New York. Stunning developments out of Washington, D.C. The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol laid out evidence that former President Trump was responsible for the insurrection. And as Chris Wynn reports, the committee is referring Trump for criminal charges.
A historic day on Capitol Hill as the House Committee investigating the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol held its final public session Monday.
This committee is nearing the end of its work. But as the country, we remain in strange and uncharted waters.
Marking the end of the panel's expansive probe into the riot and former President Donald Trump's alleged role.
We've never had a president of the United States stir up a violent attempt to block the transfer of power.
The Select Committee referring multiple charges against Trump and some of his closest allies to the Department of Justice.
Ours is not a system of justice where foot soldiers go to jail and the masterminds and ringleaders get a free pass.
The alleged crimes include obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to defraud the federal government, conspiracy to make a false statement, and assisting or aiding an insurrection.
Nothing could be a greater betrayal of this duty than to assist in insurrection against the constitutional order.
While the criminal referrals carry no legal weight, committee members say their decision serves as a way to document their views for the record. Attorney General Merrick Garland will make the ultimate call on whether or not to prosecute.
It is clearly in the hands now of the Department of Justice.
The committee's report is expected to be released to the public Wednesday as the former president braces for the potential legal fallout. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn reporting.
There's a current shortage of middle and low-income homes in San Diego, but the city's housing policies have still earned recognition from the state. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer explains why San Diego was named a pro-housing city.
How excited we are.
The pro-housing designation is awarded to some California cities that have policies and practices to help remove barriers for housing production. San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria says the designation gives San Diego an edge when applying for housing, transportation, and infrastructure programs from the state.
So it opens the door to state funding that we otherwise would not be able to have access to. So I believe that this will give us the dollars that will help us to address the infrastructure needs that this new housing requires. And this is really just a good day for our housing policies and encouragement to other cities to follow our lead.
But the city is still well behind in building low and middle income housing units, and homelessness continues to increase. Ricardo Flores is executive director of LISC San Diego. The nonprofit advocates for increased housing. Flores says San Diego's designation doesn't line up with the realities many are facing.
A lot of folks out there do not feel that San Diego's pro-housing because their rents are high, or they can't find another place to live, or they may be a family that wants to be homeowners so that they have that certainty of a mortgage, but they cannot find a home at their price point.
Gloria says it's not about the shortfalls of the past, but the policies now in place. He says those policies will increase affordable housing in the future.
As we move forward with projects, and the question often becomes, how are we going to pay for that? What about the infrastructure? Where's the water going to come from? These are now dollars that we can compete for to get. And the good news is we're not competing against the hundreds of cities in the state of California. We'd only be competing against the handful of others that have the same designation.
San Diego is one of 6 cities in California to earn a pro-housing city status. Flores says the biggest challenge for the city and region is changing zoning laws to reduce the amount of single-family home lots. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Prices of everyday items and interest rates continue in upward spiral. KPBS reporter Melissa May says that has people pulling back on spending during this season of giving.
Holiday shopping is a bit different for people this year.
Definitely has changed. Price increases have made me cut back a lot. Having to prioritize needs over wants has been like a big thing for me this year.
Staying at home, doing get-togethers, that sort of a thing, rather than lots of presents and making sure, there's a bunch of stuff under the tree.
During this season of giving, people are struggling with credit card debt and high interest rates.
Expect to see more of that next year, especially after the holidays, because as you know, people spend during the holidays, they're traveling, they're going out to eat more, they're buying gifts, they're spending time with family, and a lot of times money is not the top of people's mind when they're doing that.
Thomas Nitchie works for Money Management International, a national nonprofit organization that provides debt management plan services and housing and credit counseling.
Making sure that you have a budget in place so that you're not accidentally overspending on folks as you're in the shopping mode. That's really easy to do.
Marlon Ibarra is a sales analytics manager who used to be in financial debt and hid that during the holiday season.
Don't fall into that I have to give. You should be paying your bills. Whatever money is left over, then you can go ahead and buy for others.
Ibarra used MMI to fix his debt and wants to remind people
it's the season of giving, not the season of giving the most expensive.
Justin and Angie Asher are celebrating their daughter Claire's 2nd birthday today and will be with family for the holiday.
I just wouldn't get too swept up in it. It's a very materialistic thing. It's more important to spend time with your family. So if you can't do as much as you normally would, I would just say just make sure that you're getting together with your friends and your family and you're having a good time.
Melissa May, KPBS News.
The VA Medical Center officially has a new name honoring an Army captain from San Diego who made the ultimate sacrifice. Captain Jennifer Moreno's family was there for the unveiling in La Jolla. Moreno grew up in Logan Heights and graduated from San Diego High School before becoming a nurse in the Army. She was killed in Afghanistan in 2013 while helping wounded soldiers during a raid. This is the first VA facility in the country to bear the name of a Latina veteran.
Jenny cared about people, and that's why it's so fitting that this VA Medical Center bears her name. Because Jenny represents everything that we want to be at the VA.
Earlier this year, President Biden signed a law to rename the facility the Jennifer Moreno Veterans Affairs Medical Center. The documentary film Ultimate Sacrifices, released this year, profiles her life and service. California greenhouse gas emissions fell between 2019 and 2020, a side benefit from the pandemic. KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson has more on the latest California Green Innovation Index.
The index is produced by the nonpartisan think tank Next 10, and it found that greenhouse gas emissions from transportation fell 8.7%. That's primarily because COVID shutdowns greatly reduced emissions from vehicles, pushing the numbers down for the 3rd straight year. Electric vehicle sales are rising, and utility-scale battery storage grew at an unprecedented rate in 2020. But the news is not all good.
For all of these successes and for all of the cuts we've made in the transportation sector, we are generating more carbon emissions in 2020 than from in-state power generation than we were the year before. And that's a bit disheartening.
Emissions from state electricity production were up 6.3% from 1990 to 2020. Adler says the summer heat waves and a regional drought reduced some hydropower production, forcing the state to fire up more fossil fuel power plants.
We want to decarbonize buildings. We want to decarbonize transportation with EVs, but we need to have a grid that's getting cleaner and cleaner. So our grid has been a leader across the country, but of late we've slowed down. So one challenge, if you will, and opportunity for our leaders in the state is to really begin to revamp up renewable energy creation and growth.
Wildfires continue to be a major source of carbon emissions in California. The report found that climate-driven fires produced more greenhouse gas emissions than ever in 2020. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
If your holiday travel plans include riding the train from San Diego to Los Angeles, you may want to think again. Officials suspended rail service in September after inspectors detected movement in the bluffs above the San Clemente rail bed. Authorities expected service to begin again this month, but emergency work to stabilize the bluffs is still underway. Passenger rail service is still suspended and won't reopen until February.
The truth was that early on, we didn't know exactly how long this repair work would take. It was all estimates. And once we started talking to experts on the project, they had a better idea of that timeline of what it would take. And we think that a realistic timeline to open that up to passenger rail again is February.
Freight trains have been running at reduced speeds in order to continue movement of goods between San Diego and Los Angeles. The stabilization project is expected to cost $12 million.
Now, lots of sunshine throughout the daytime today, and yes, a warming trend. We're going to be following that as we go throughout the upcoming week into the holiday weekend, and we're also going to stay on the dry side. I do think there can be some clouds as we venture into Tuesday, perhaps even later on tonight. Not quite as chilly as it was this morning. It was pretty cool out there with those clear skies, right? But still chilly enough for the Jacket, Oceanside, Ramona down into the 30s, San Diego, Chula Vista down to 42, and 28 toward Mount Laguna. Pleasant, though, as we get to experience some sunshine. There will be some cloudiness on Tuesday. Rain still stays way off to the north. We're talking about highs climbing back into the mid-60s towards San Diego. Borrego Springs topping out near 70 degrees. Ramona at 67. Into Wednesday we go. Mostly dry out there. Again, showers confined to northern California. And again, the cold and the snow well off to the north and to the east. But hey, if you have some travel plans later on this week, notice all throughout the Southwest, we're in good shape. To the north, different story. If your travels take you north or your travels take you well east, and I just want to show you kind of a sneak ahead into Friday. Some of those same spots can experience more travel delays, but traveling regionally or even locally, we're going to be in good shape. As I talked about, a warming trend is coming up, and you can really start to see that take fruition here as we work our way into the weekend. Look at Saturday here toward the coast, 68. Again, looking at a few of those clouds on Tuesday, I think we'll see quite a bit of sunshine here over the following days over some of the interior valleys. 70 by Thursday, mid-70s heading into the weekend. So there's your jump in the mercury. Those overnight lows will be climbing up through the 40s over the mountains. Also looking at temperatures into the upper 50s, perhaps a little bit of a climb here as we head into the weekend. Lots of sunshine throughout and over the deserts, 60s Tuesday, and then we're in the 70s, even the mid-70s by Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
As we wrap up 2022, we're taking a look back at memorable stories from the past year. When a youth boxing program in Vista got displaced from its gym, the organizer decided to build one in his backyard. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne shows us how the organization is helping a group of kids become champions inside and outside of the boxing ring.
From the outside, Rudy Moreno's Vista home looks pretty normal. But past his yard owl and through his side path, you'll find a large tent filled with young and aspiring boxers. It's part of a nonprofit he started called Hero Inc., helping everyone reach opportunity.
I have a motto, which is learn, grow, and lead. okay? So each one of these kids, they learn something, okay? Then they become leaders and they teach others, and then they just grow from there.
Moreno used to teach in a bigger space, but last year the program was displaced to make way for a new residential development.
We lost our big facility that we had off of North Santa Fe. So we put our minds together, we put our money together because it was pricey, and we decided, you know what, we have the space in our backyard. Why don't we just construct something here?
Moreno built a gym in his very own backyard because of the benefits boxing brought to the community.
Physical activity, helps you mentally and physically. And not only do I want to create champions in the ring, but I want to create champions outside of the ring as well. That way they become productive citizens.
Boxing helped Moreno stay out of trouble while growing up in Vista. He went on to join the Air Force, serving for 20 years. After retirement, the sport helped him recover from the effects of PTSD.
And there was a time that my body just started falling apart, basically, after retirement. I guess because I wasn't physically active anymore.
Now, Moreno gives back to his hometown with boxing through his organization, working with kids like Alina Torres.
I think it helped me not to get picked on, and it's just because I'm small doesn't mean I can't do anything.
She's the only girl in the group. She's won national titles and state championships that she hopes will keep stacking up.
I want to take it to at least the Olympics, to where I get top and even maybe professional.
17-year-old Franklin Garcia says boxing has kept him from hanging out with the wrong crowds.
There's other sports kids can do, not just boxing. There's other sports, and I encourage kids to do sports, instead of out there being in the streets, do sports, and it's good for your health,
Boxing also inspired him to join his school's cross-country team. He hopes to go to a 4-year university and continue boxing.
Cross country, then boxing, school, and I just hope to be someone big, be one of the big top fighters.
Victor Villagomez, or Tony Boy, is Moreno's youngest competitor at 10 years old.
It helped me by getting confident and building more strength to my mind and to my body.
Like the rest of the boxers, Tony Boy has big goals in mind.
What I want to do is be a pro, so I can make a career for myself, so it could be successful. Successful.
What brings me joy is seeing their expressions. When we go to a national tournament and they win a national tournament or even local tournaments, just seeing them win. They know that the hard work that they've been putting in at the gym is paying off. 2, 1, quick, go!
Moreno's backyard boxing program is temporary. He hopes to get a bigger place with more sports and services for the community.
Other sports, fitness, basketball, football. I would like my facility to have a learning resource center, a computer lab where kids can come and do their homework and then participate in an activity.
Until then, Moreno's backyard is open until the sun goes down to help kids reach new opportunities.
You always want to help that one person up so that way they can help the next person.
Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the January 6th committee recommends criminal charges against former President Trump. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
People of the Jewish faith are celebrating the second night of Hanukkah. Last night, a menorah lighting ceremony was held at Liberty Station. More events are being held this evening, including a menorah lighting at the San Diego County Administration Building. For military service members stationed abroad and their families, the holidays can be a stark reminder of that service and sacrifice. Karen Kafa visits with some organizations seeking to bridge long distances and provide a little comfort with the sounds of the season.
The holiday season has a certain ring to it. And striking a certain chord can make a long distance connection seem a little closer.
The one that always gets me is Silent Night. It just brings tears to your eyes.
On a recent evening at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts in Washington, an audience of active duty service members, military families, and military veterans enjoyed a free holiday concert by the National Symphony Orchestra featuring Tony Award winner Laura Benanti and including classics like I'll Be Home for Christmas.
My brother-in-law, my sister's husband, was a Marine who was in Afghanistan, and I often think of him when I sing that song, and it's very moving to be able to sing for people who aren't necessarily able to be together during Christmas. I remember how hard that was for my sister.
The U.S. military has its own musical traditions and long-standing ensembles, like the United States Marine Band, the President's Own, which accompanied the unveiling of this year's White House holiday decorations. Violinist Derek Powell played with the United States Army Band, Pershing's Own, before joining the National Symphony Orchestra.
No matter where you're from in the U.S., you probably, or even around the world, you hear a lot of these songs and it brings you back to a time or place.
That familiarity can be powerful for service members stationed abroad and their families at home.
From personal experience, being deployed during the holidays was one of the toughest times as I was away from family and what I was used to.
After nearly 25 years of military service, Christopher Plamp now heads up USO Entertainment, which has presented programs for U.S. troops abroad since the 1940s. He says the virtual era provides new opportunities via video and mobile apps that can reach beyond their in-person events.
We make sure that we're providing entertainment around the world to the service members, no matter where they are, but also just through our holiday programming. Last year, we had over 2,500 different holiday events all around the world.
Benanti says she can't put herself in the position of those serving abroad or missing a loved one this holiday season, but she can be part of that longtime tradition of music, bringing a little joy.
If there's a little joy, a little glimmer of happiness, you know, that we can bring people, then that makes me feel, I just feel really grateful to have the opportunity to do that.
Yourself a very Merry Christmas.
In Washington, Karen Kafa, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Christmas is my favorite time of year, and the real highlight is the food.
That is delicious.
Oh, Mary. I'm going to share with you all the tricks and tips that I've learnt. Absolutely scrumptious.
Watch live or stream tonight at 9 on KPBS.
It's the season of giving. If you've been thinking about giving to KPBS,